Welcome back. Jennifer Fierro, your broad podcaster here in the Highland Lakes with Art Dlugach, the voice of the Llano Yellow Jackets. We're going to continue our tour of the Highland Lakes football. Next stop, we're going to go 281 North and stop in to Bulldog Field, talk a little bit about the Burnet Bulldogs. As we mentioned in the last segment, the Bulldogs are going to be traveling to play Lago Vista or scrimmage them on Friday night, August 12th. Some varsities at 5 o'clock. The varsities will take the field at 6:30. Art, I know you are very familiar with the Vikings after spending the last two seasons in the same district with Lago and Llano, right?
Yes, too familiar almost against the Vikings. Creighton Phillips, the head coach, has just done an outstanding job, and the Vikings have beaten Llano 2 or 3 times over the past 5 or 6 years, so they have certainly held their own with the Jackets. They've now moved up to 4A. That's a terrific scrimmage. Burnet and Lago Vista. We'll certainly learn a lot about Burnet. The Vikings last year went to the state semifinals in 3A and were beaten by Lorena, the eventual state champion, which took care of Brock in the championship game. Llano won a thriller over Lago last year, 13-10. Isaiah Bush saved the game for the Jackets with an interception as Lago was driving to take the lead. And the year before that, Llano beat Lago in the playoffs in a thriller. It was just a couple of points or so. So they always seem to be just a real competitive team. And Bradley Castle is still the defensive coordinator for Lago Vista, and he was possibly the #1 football player to come out of Llano. He graduated in '98, went on to play for North Texas, and then went on to play 5 or 6 years in the National Football League. So there's a lot that Llano fans know about Lago.
What is his other sport? Do you know what else he coaches?
Yes, I've seen him at both powerlifting and track.
Okay, and the reason I ask that is because Lago Vista is in the Burnet Marble Falls non-football district. So we may get to see that coach at some of the track meets and powerlifting meets too. So that'll be very good for us.
He has 1 or 2 daughters who are fine athletes, and one won a couple of events at the district track meet this past spring. And to do that at the stadium where he played, I thought that was pretty darn interesting.
Yeah, that's nice. That's a great memory for that family. Okay, well, Burnet is going to be walking into that district, into that scrimmage, rather. I think that there are plenty of question marks. Probably the biggest is going to be the offensive line. I will write that. In fact, I started writing that in my 10 insights to Highland Lakes Sports on TexasChalkTalk.com. I'll put that up at some point today so that people can I'll give you a glimpse of what I'm interested in seeing from these teams, if you will. I'm interested in seeing what the Burnet offensive line looks like. I'm interested to see if they can gel together and how quickly, because again, Burnet in May was projected to have 3 returning starters to the offensive line. One of those starters chose not to return to the football program, chose to go all in on another sport. So that means that there's going to be some sophomores who will be put on that line and are going to learn very, very quickly about the Friday Night Lights in that environment, in that setting. I agree with you. I don't think that Coach Wood, Brian Wood, the head coach at Burnet, could have gotten a better opponent for this first scrimmage. Not a better one.
Well, awfully tough. I'll guarantee you. Each team should give the other plenty of fits. And Coach Wood trying to turn things around in Burnet. They've had some down years, unusual for them in the last couple of decades, for sure.
Yeah.
And Llano will play Burnet on September 2nd second game of the season in Llano.
Burnet 3-7 last year, overall 1-4 in the district, but Coach Wood, in my mind, was a late hire. They did not hire him until sometime in May. So he was still trying to install so much of his playbook during two-a-days last year. He says the retention has been awesome this season. Let's see it. I'm curious to see that retention and see what the Bulldogs look like. I, of course, will be with the Bulldogs when they do their second scrimmage, which will be at home the following week. We're going to switch now to the Mustangs. Marble Falls is welcoming Leander Glenn. The Mustangs right now, grades 10 through 12, had in the low 70s. I think when they added in their freshmen, they should be right at around in triple digits, grades 9 through 12. But I have to double check with Coach Herman.
For youngsters coming out for football.
Yes, yeah. Grades 9 through 12 for football. Here's the question that I have, though. Leander is coming in, I want to say they're coming in with 150 players. So this will be very interesting to see how the Mustangs gel with that. I am curious again to see, like we've mentioned, offensive line, all of the starters graduated from last year's team. Secondary, all 5 of those starters graduated from last year's team. So I am curious to see what Leander will bring. And I say that because I don't know if they will go pro style. I don't know if they will go spread. I don't know if they're going to go run heavy first. I'm curious to see how the Mustangs will be tested on Friday night against the Grizzlies.
It's always interesting when the slot T is unveiled, not for the first time by Coach Herman to be sure, but as the season starts to see how well it will play out. I'll tell you something. I've seen some great slot T over the years in high school football, beginning with Liberty Hill, 2 straight state championships, and then Llano adopted it with head coach David Yeager, and it's a wonderful offense when it's working, like all of our lives are. It's wonderful, but I'll guarantee you'll be impressed, I'm sure, again this year with Coach Herman as each class that gets to understand the slot T more than the one before them.
Yeah, I agree. The thing that I find interesting about the slot that I think, because here's what I'm hearing. We knew that the district was changing. When Marble Falls moved up to 4A, we knew at that point that they were out of the Austin ISD district. Gone are also the days where Marble Falls is going to average 70, put 70 points on the board. I don't see that happening in this new District 13 4A Division I, not with Comel Davenport, Comel Canyon Lake, Lampasas, Burnet, and Taylor in the district. So here's the thought. You could probably relate to this since you brought up David Yeager. What I'm hearing is Marble Falls will unveil the true, what the slot T was designed to do. And I didn't understand that. So I had to say to somebody, dumb it down. And here's what they said. Marble Falls is probably going to win some games, 7-0, 10-7, 14, 14-7, 14-10, because if Marble Falls has a lead, they are just going to do what Coach Yeager used to do, 9-minute drives, 9 to 10-minute drives. Do you remember that?
Well, I can only tell you this,
okay,
that when Llano would line up on offense for Coach Yeager, I'm there broadcasting, and I'm holding that microphone, and I'm telling you I am wishing for a 30 or 40 or 50-yard play every down. And, of course, it didn't happen. And there's no question, if you can chew that clock up the way you mentioned, that's a great advantage come late in the game. But we wanted those guys to bust the big one for the Yellow Jackets in those years. Coach Yeager took over in 05, and ran the slot T 05 through 09, and then it became spread because of the Rab brothers, Leighton and Preston.
Well, but here's the thing, and I'd love your thoughts on this. With the slot T, staying on schedule, at least in my observation, is a huge component. You can't have what I call silly penalties. Somebody jumping off yards, or jumping off sides rather. You can't have two players moving at the same time. So anything that puts you behind the chains in the slot T offense, especially if you know that you're not going to score as much, or the offense is still coming along, anytime that you have the opportunity to put together a drive that not only chews time, but you also have to be able to punch the ball in. You've got to get points. Because you shorten the game, that means possessions are going to be fewer. And that, I am curious to see how the Marble Falls offense responds to that.
A disadvantage to the slot T is that if you're behind and you need some 20, 30, 40-yard gains and you have to start passing the ball, you hope that your quarterback can do that.
Yeah, and that will be an interesting element because I did get to see the Mustangs go against each other in full pads on Saturday. The defense was ahead of the offense. It typically is this time of year. What got the offense going is that the Marble Falls tight end snuck away and was wide open and caught a wide open pass for a touchdown. That was probably the longest play of the day. It was about 35 yards, something like that, 35, 40 yards. But until then, the defense made a living in that backfield. So I'm curious to see what the Mustangs and the Grizzlies do. Don't know that they'll go too deep into the playbook. That has not been Herman's style the last 3 Augusts. I don't see that. I can tell you that they have tweaked and added a little bit more. They've installed more of the offense in, or more of the scheme in. But I just don't think you're going to see a whole lot of that. And it's not going to be obvious to those who don't know the slot T inside and out. Just my opinion. And at least that's been my experience. Okay. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap this one up?
Well, just something you said last week about running the football, which is what the slot T does, is becoming more popular gradually. It's not going to take over from the spread immediately, but it certainly, according to coaches and other people I've talked to, that we're seeing a lot of running in the state of Texas. And when we go to the next segment to talk more about the Yellow Jackets,
yes,
I'll have a statistic or two concerning that.
Okay, great. Well, then we're going to wrap this one up. Jennifer Fierro, your broad podcaster. Art Dlugach, the voice of the Llano Yellow Jackets. Stay with us. We're going to talk about the Jackets in segment 3. And please make sure you like, subscribe, and share the channel.